What's up, Heelcast Nation? Welcome to the Heelcast. This is a very, very special episode. But before we do introductions, I want to say one thing. I've been waiting to do this podcast for a long time, and I know I put this out on Facebook, and a lot of people are anxious to hear this. But without further ado, I'm joined by the one, the only, formerly known as Brother _ GFW Dude. What's up, man?
Not much, man. I'm formerly known as a lot of things, and still known as a lot of things too, but none good, man. It is great to be here with you tonight there, Hurls.
Yes, and our very, very special guest he's part of the Impact roster. He is the new monster, Kongo Kong. How you doing, Kong?
Not too bad. How about yourselves?
We're doing good. We've been very excited for this interview, so thanks for coming on.
I'm a little scared, to be honest with you, bud. I'm peeing my pants over here. We got the monster with us tonight.
Well, just to clarify it for you and make it a little easier, and to save that thing that they call kayfabe or whatever her name is, you're talking to Steve Wilson, the man behind the monster, Kongo Kong.
Ah, gotcha. So we got a good guy on tonight. This isn't like that Steve and Rosemary interview where they took us in the trunk and did things to us that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ooh, I feel a little relieved after that. So I'm glad to be joined by Steve tonight.
Yeah, you can wipe those drops of pee away, and you'll be all right.
Nah, I just let him stay, man. The stench smells good on me.
But anyways, want to do some shout outs real quick. I want to do a shout out to impactasylum.net. That's where all our content is. It's where you can find everything. Sometimes we like to do some fun contests like the booking contest and the booking challenge. That was real fun. Check out BQ. He does the Impact Lounge. He's always a strong promoter of us as we are to him. So check him out. Check out Andre Corbeil. He's one of our very good friends on Twitter and a very good friend on the show. So check him out. Check out FK9, Fool Killer. He runs his own podcast as well on Impact. Robert does wrestling. He also has his own podcast on YouTube. So check him out. The Impact community is strong and it's growing daily. So GFW Dude, you got any other shout outs you want to give?
Oh, man, you just call me GFW, dude.
Well, you got like 5 names. I don't know which one you are. It changes on the daily.
Can't help it. Every time the company changes its name, I got to change my name. Blame them. Don't blame me, bud. I have a feeling we're talking to GFW tonight.
All right. Well, let's get started. Steve, what got you into wrestling?
Man, I barely had an interest. I would say until I was 5. And actually, my mom and I would sit up on Saturday nights and watch gorgeous ladies of wrestling. I'm man enough to admit that. I don't care. But then Hogan slammed Andre, and it kind of changed for me, and it kind of became this thing where all of a sudden I wanted to be Hulk Hogan. And like, I realized that, I would one day have the size and potential to become a professional wrestler.
That's awesome. I remember vaguely watching Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, and man, I was captivated by all the different characters they portrayed. But
I was captivated by their looks, man. I watched that shit every freaking week. Steve, I'm with you on the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling thing, man.
Yeah, you don't really realize how bad the wrestling was until you look back as a grown man, and then you're like, what was I watching? But yeah, it was at the time it was a fun product, and it was different. It wasn't just the big macho man out there beating each other up. It was some pretty sexy ladies, what I'm saying, in there, and then some not so sexy ladies. But it gave you a chance to grab hold to some different characters.
Now, you mentioned that, grown man and having the size. You're listed at 6'7", 376. Is that right?
well, 6'6", actually somewhere floating between 320 and 330. Just depends on, the dump I take that day, I guess. Still pretty big guy, but if you pick my hair up, I'm damn near 7 feet, like I like to use.
But they always give you a few inches, right, when they're announcing you and saying how much you weigh. So
yeah, pretty much. You always gotta make it seem, I guess, larger than life. But I mean, truth of the matter is, yeah, I'm a measly 330, just a measly 6'6".
But speaking of Glow, that's the one thing I do remember is the characters, and some of them terrified me as a kid. And I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years old when I was watching that with my dad and my mom. So around the same era as you. So I have great nostalgia for that. But
awesome.
And also rest in peace to Mount Fuji. She just passed away not too long ago. So
did she? Wow, that's awesome. Well, I mean, not awesome that she passed away, but
right.
Yeah, she was one of my favorite characters easily on there.
Yeah, I think she always wrestled. I think her name was Bad Mama. I think it was, but they had a pretty good feud if I remember correctly. But yeah, rest in peace, Mount Fuji. But anyway, so what was the school you went to train at?
Well, we started off at PWF or PW3. That's what it was. Pro Wrestling Worldwide in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was there for about 2 weeks, and I knew how to do a drop, toe hold, and a headlock before they threw me in a match. Fortunately, that place ended up folding. But before it folded, they had actually brought in a guy by the name of Joe Ortega, who wrestles under the name El Tejano. And as far as I know, was trained by Jose Lothario. They brought him in as a trainer. And so then once the company folded, he opened up his own school in a town about 25 minutes away called Holland, Michigan. And that was where I ended up meeting Jimmy Jacobs.
So how far back do you and Jimmy Jacobs go then? This is pretty far back.
The beginning, 1998.
Wow.
Yeah, he was like 15, 16 years old, and like the promoter hated him.
I wonder why.
And just kind of he hung around and he filmed and he did whatever he could to kind of get his hands wet until he was old enough to get trained, or until he found a place that would actually train him. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly how that worked, but I know we started off together.
Wow, that's awesome. So what was the main promotion, let's say right after you were thrown into your first few matches, what was the main promotion that you were doing most of your work in?
It's called Lakeshore Wrestling Organization. It the NWO and the LWO and all those were big at that point. And so, the promoter, Joe, decided to try to capitalize on that. And he just called it LSWO, like big L, little S, WO, and really kind of rightfully so. He's a Latino guy, so why not, right?
Right. I mean, that was huge back in the day in WCW. So then take us maybe around the time of WWE acquiring WCW. What promotions were you working in around that time?
What year did that happen?
That was about April 2001.
2001. I had actually slowed down wrestling period because I had gone back to school and had a football scholarship, so I didn't want to do anything to mess that up. So the whole goal was to try to stay in school long enough to get my education and play some football.
Where'd you play?
Huh?
Where did you play?
I played for the University of St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where I currently live. They actually just won their second national championship for the NAIA Collegiate League. But my last year, I was part of the first undefeated team that they had. So, yeah, congratulations to them, and I'm grateful to be able to say I was part of a great, heritage that began there.
That's awesome. So when football ended, was it pretty much a given that you wanted just to keep wrestling, or was there something else that you kind of wanted to do, whether it be like semi-pro football or a different, office job or whatever?
I actually gave up my last year of football because I don't know. I didn't have a zeal for it anymore. And I got tired of waking up out of the bed and not being able to stand up right away. Wrestling had always been something that was a part of me, was with me, and something that I loved. And so it was kind of a no-brainer to go back to it. The unfortunate part of all the money that I spent trying to figure out that I didn't want to do anything else. So, you get most of the way through college and you're like, wow, there's nothing here that I would want to wake up doing every day. Wrestling is pretty much it for me.
Wow. So then let's say maybe about 2004 to 2008, were you continuing to do like the local independent scene, or did you have some offers overseas, and did you wrestle over in like Mexico or Japan or anything like that?
No, I went back to wrestling in somewhere 2003. I believe it's 2003. It might have been 2004. But I wrestled under the name Osiris. And I went to a company called Extreme Wrestling Federation, which is about 40 to 45 miles down the road, ran by Jason Maples, who now runs a company called Heroes and Legends Wrestling that is actually, doing pretty well. But the company, EWF at the time, they ran every week. And so it was a good place for me to go and get some experience and get my feet wet again and try to get comfortable to where I could go out and make a name for myself.
So let's go to maybe like 2008 to 2012. Was this around the time where you started feeling really comfortable in the ring and you kind of started, finding your niche in the business?
Yeah, it was around that time I started to spread my wings a little bit and try to get out more, try to go to different promotions. And eventually what happened was I went to company called Championship International Wrestling, ran by a guy by the name of Phil Monahan. And I wrestled as Osiris for him once. And I'd asked him about the next booking. He says, I'll get back to you. So he contacted me later on that week and he says, I don't really think I have anything for Osiris here. He said, but I've been thinking, I feel like you do great as a cross between Umaga and Kamala. And, he's like, kind of paint your face and just kind of come up with this wild look and wild mentality. And he said, you can make it your own, but those are the two characters I kind of want it based off of. Well, looking around his company, that was pretty much what it was. It was 1980s, for lack of a better term, ripoffs, not to bury the guy or his company or anything, because it did help me, kind of get my feet wet, I guess, in this thing, in this character. But there was, they did like a Demolition ripoff and a Road Warrior ripoff and all kinds of just characters. Really, it was what they were trying to keep because, the fans at the time were still believing and they were still buying into these characters. So, in order to do that, I was like, well, I really don't prefer that kind of character or gimmick or anything, but I said, I'll do it for more money. And so he's like, all right, cool, no problem. I'll pay you more money. So I came up with the name Shamari, which meant Proud Warrior, I believe, in Swahili or some African name, and it just happened to be that I also had a little cousin named Shamari too, so it made it kind of extra special, I guess, for me. And then I went out and I did it for a couple years as Shamari. I tried to be the wild man and unintelligible savage, but like it bothered me. It heated me to my core because I felt like every time I saw a black man in wrestling, he was doing this, either this sort of gimmick or a rapping gimmick or a dancing gimmick, or he had Crime Time who was stealing stuff. And it always seemed to have some sort of negative connotation when it came to African Americans and doing gimmicks. So, I kind of steered away from it or whatever as much as I could. But then I kept getting offers to do bookings here and there. And so the more the bookings would come, the more I was like, well, let me raise the price on them. Maybe they won't want to use me then. But that didn't seem to work too well. Well, fast forward to I'd say about 2009. I was working for a company called Elite Pro Wrestling out of Chicago, and a guy by the name of Vito Tomaselli had an in with ICP and the Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and so he wanted me to try to get in there, and so he talked me up to Joe, Violent J, and Joe saw the film of me and he was interested in me, and he says, man, I'd love it if he painted his face like his tattoo on his arm. And so I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll be Osiris, but with a painted face, no problem. We'll figure out what's going on and go with it. Well, I get there and we're in the booking meeting and they're saying, okay, Kongo Kong's going to come out and he's going to squash all 4 of you tag teams after your match and leave you guys laying. And meanwhile, I'm looking around and I'm like, who is this Kongo Kong? Like, I know everybody here and I know, what names they go by here. Who is this Kongo Kong? What the hell are you talking about? And so then he looks at me and he says, oh, Kongo Kong's your new name. You can use it anywhere you like. And I'm just looking like, what in the hell did I get myself into? Like, man. But I did it, and it was worth a lot of money. And I kind of bit the bullet, and kind of played along at first. And then I was like, you know what? I got to take this thing and try to make it mine and see what I can do with it. And I came up with the theory that, the Ultimate Warrior, he was a savage too. He played the same kind of character. He just talked. But I still didn't want to talk, but I didn't want to be a big dumb savage, if that makes any sense. Umaga, he didn't talk, but he was very intelligent. He was just, very vicious too. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, I guess, my 2008 to 2012.
That's awesome. I'm just going to say, and probably a lot of our listeners feel the same way, Kamala was one of my all-time favorite characters. When I saw you show up on Impact, I was ecstatic for that reason alone. I mean, dude was big, dude was tough, and quite frankly, he scared the living out of me as a kid, and you just don't get that anymore. And I think that's one of the things that I personally appreciate about Kongo Kong the most is the fact that when you come out to the ring, you legitimately terrify kids.
Yeah, that's the best part about it is having a reaction from the kids, from the children. That's whether they love me or they hate me. A lot of times, like if I'm at an independent show and I'm at the merch table, they'll be afraid to talk to me, you know what I mean, or afraid to come up to me, and I'll just have to reach out my hand and give them some dap or a high five or something, just to let them know that I'm not going to bite you right now. When I'm coming to the ring, you might want to watch out. But right here, right now, I need to show you that, I believe, or you can believe in me, so that your parents can go in their wallet and buy some merchandise. It sounds terrible, but I feel like as long as the children believe in characters like mine, then I have a place here. You know, I can't tell you how many people get on the interwebs and they're like, oh yeah, Kongo Kong is taking us back to the 1980s, and he's taking wrestling back 30 years, and he's doing this and doing that, and he doesn't belong, and he looks stupid and ridiculous. And okay, what did you grow up on? Because I remember having, guys like me back then, guys that were larger than life and kind of unbelievable, but they still made you believe. And it's kind of what triggered me into liking wrestling. The presence of the big bad guy, like the King Kong Bundy, the Yokozuna, the Bam Bam Bigelows and Vaders, the Kamalas and Umagas. Those were all guys that helped the babyface get over. We made the baby faces. Hulk Hogan wouldn't exist without Andre or, King Kong Bundy or any of those big guys. He wouldn't be as big. He wouldn't carry as big a legacy as he does based on who he wrestled. Had he not wrestled those big guys, and had he not conquered those big evil giants. And so to me, in a world where there's a bunch of, good looking gym rats in the ring, you need something that's different, something that stands out. And that's like the number one advice that I give to the young guys these days, is to be different. Like, try not to look like your next door neighbor. If there's 10 guys on a roster with a beard, shave your beard, do something different with it. Not everybody can look like a Trailer Park Jesus. If there's 5 guys who are all like skinny, get some muscles, get in the gym, find something to do. If you're a big guy, find a way to make yourself stand out and be different.
It's funny you say that. First of all, that is music to my ears personally, because it's exactly how I feel. And I'm a child of the 80s as well. So I grew up with all those characters. And yeah, Hulk Hogan wouldn't be the same without those. And I even mentioned to Hurls earlier this evening, I said, look, this is what Kongo Kong can be for Impact Wrestling. They want to build that next big baby face. He's the guy they got to go through in order to become that baby face. So my question for you is, how does it feel, when you look at some of these smaller guys? How does it feel? Hello?
Hello?
That was weird.
Yeah.
How does it feel wrestling some of those smaller guys? And also, how do you push those guys to the top where it's a little bit harder to get there because it's not quite as believable to go through a Kongo Kong?
That's where we become magicians, and we can take anything and make it believable, or just about anything and make it believable. So, really it's for me, it's about coming up with ways, especially in situations where I'm that much bigger than the guy, ways that I take myself out of the equation, I guess, and then he can capitalize. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily just him, out muscling me, or, maybe in the moment he's outwitting me. And that's leading to me, I guess, ultimately, like I said, taking myself out of the game.
Kind of going to what you were saying, I watched Bobby Lashley's retrospective on the Global Wrestling Network, and, he kind of said a similar thing that you said. Is he tells a lot of young guys, just, if you have to do 10 different, finishers or crazy flips and you don't win the match, what does that say about you? So it kind of goes back to what, you're saying. Try to be different. Don't, follow what everybody else is doing. And I 100% agree with that, because I think there needs to be more characters. And I think wrestling kind of got away from that. I want to say around, late 2000s, where, you get a lot of people that, they look like they're doing some really cool athletic stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you want people to be invested in characters. And I think that's where you draw, a lot of people into the matches itself.
Right. Yeah. It's got to be something different there. Like you said, late 2000s. I would say when WWE was using OVW as their farming ground. If you look at it, all the people that came out of there, they're all kind of the same. I mean, you got your John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, maybe a couple more that came out of there that are actually doing something with their career. But beyond that, everybody else that they fed in, you're just like, it's the same as the last time. There's nothing special about this guy. There's no real cool gimmick or aspect to this guy. He's kind of like your Jack next door neighbor. Like, who cares at this point?
Right. It's almost like a Ken doll. You know, they were putting out all these guys that really didn't have a lot of personality to them. I'm not going to mention any names, but you know, they just didn't really have anything to make you invest into their character. And that's why I appreciated guys like the Boogeyman and, you know, just guys who had characters and, you know, would do something out of the box, you know, and whether they worked or they didn't, you know, it's still just the thought of trying something different. And that's what I appreciate about wrestling. Not saying like there's no place for those guys that, you know, don't have a character, but I feel like there has to be a good balance.
Hell, Hurls, I'll say it. I don't think there's a place for guys without a good character. I mean, wrestling's about characters, man. I mean, that's what it's about. It's hard to invest in somebody that has no character. Oh, they can do a backflip. Great. You know, who cares? You know, everybody, right. No offense, I can't do a backflip, but you know what I mean? Like, they all do backflips. I like that Kongo Kong character. I like the Eli Drake character. You know, I want to see people that I can invest in on my television set. And to me, that's the number one thing missing in wrestling these days. We have Kongo Kong, we have Rosemary, we have Eli Drake, we got a few other good characters, but too many guys are trying to be themselves. And I'm sorry, but most of us are just too damn boring.
Right. All right. So before we get into how you got offered the GFW position, what were some of the opponents that you on the indies that you had really good matches with that you look back and say, wow, these are some of the best matches of my career?
First would be a guy by the name of Hillbilly Jed, about 5'6", good 400 pounds, probably just as wide as he is tall. But at least back then, he was able to do some amazing things. I believe to this day, he still does a swanton off the top rope for a finish. But a lot of stuff that you see from me was, we'll say borrowed. He might say stole, but, you know, we'll say borrowed from him, like the cannonball. Obviously, he wasn't the first to do it, but he was the first that I'd ever seen do it, and one of the biggest guys. And I was like, wow, if he can do that, then I should be able to do that as well. And, you know, thus kind of started my wanting to use my athletic ability, I guess, more than just be a regular big man. Another name would be a guy by the name of Shane Mercer. And he's a young guy to watch out for. He's strong as a bull, holds bench press records in Kentucky, I believe it is, and other lifting records other places. But just ridiculously strong, hell of an athlete. And he's somebody that I've tangled with at least 30 different times. And like it's gotten to the point where we don't call anything when we go in there and wrestle. We just kind of go and wrestle and just be like, all right, well, whatever happens, happens, because we know each other so well. And he's one of those guys to be on the lookout for. He's recently had a couple NXT shots, and I'm hoping that develops into more for him, because I believe that he has what it takes to make it in those bigger leagues. Did
you ever have any tryouts with Ring of Honor or TNA or WWE before 2015?
I did a Ring of Honor tryout camp, and that was about it. It was mostly them kind of like I expected more feedback than I got. And I really didn't get any feedback. They didn't give me any kind of negative critique or anything like that. But they also didn't really, I guess, jump on the idea of using me. It kind of turned me off to doing that whole weekend cattle call type thing. Paying all that money and then going there and then not really feeling like I walked out with any great knowledge or anything like that. It was cool. But I felt like, and later I was told actually that they kind of want you to follow them around and try to get dark matches, and that's how you get seen, not necessarily going to this camp. Like I said, I did that, and that was pretty much my tryout exposure, I guess. There was a couple times where I had some people talk to the office at WWE for me about getting some extra work, but I guess my stature didn't really work for them. I couldn't be a paramedic or a security guard because I was just too big. And I would go as far as to say my body type for that period of time just wasn't, what they were looking for. And, it's whatever, is what it is.
Right. They definitely go through phases too on what they want. So I could definitely see it. So how did you get hooked up with this upcoming promotion called Global Force Wrestling?
Well, it kind of started with the original Global Force that was taping out in Las Vegas at the time. And I was wrestling for Scott Moore, and he told me, he says, you should come up and try out for this show. This company ran by Jeff Jarrett. He says, I believe it would do you good, do you justice. I said, okay. And so I went up and I did the tryout, and ironically, I'd met Jeff Jarrett not too long before that at an IWA Mid-South show, and he asked me what my character name was, and I told him, and he says, yeah, I've heard of you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. That's awesome. And so I get to this Global Force tryout, which is seemingly like another cattle call, but that's fine. No bigs, you go in there, you do your thing, and see what happens or whatever. Like when I got there, I saw him. Him and Karen, as a matter of fact, it was just like they had known me for years. They were really warm and receptive. It was awesome. Like, I'm like, cool, I'm in. The boss's wife loves me. I got it made. And so I did the tryout, and they told me that they liked me and would use me. Then I think it was another year until something actually happened, until we actually went out to Vegas to do the tryouts. But the storyline that they were running after the tournament was that I'd become the number one contender for the heavyweight title. So, had anything butted, I guess, it would have been a good situation for me to be in. Fast forward to a couple years later, whatever, we had done a couple of the baseball stadium shows or whatever. Still nothing really, I guess, jumping off at the time. I was still working pretty hard on indies and just kind of, I wouldn't say had given up, but had just kind of rested on the conclusion that, if something's going to happen, it'll happen. And, when the time is right, it'll be the right time, if that makes any sense. So I'd done a couple of shots with Abyss at a couple of different companies, and wrestled each other, and then we tagged with each other. And Abyss he said, man, he's like, I'm looking for the right opportunity. He says, but I feel like you deserve a shot. And the right storyline to come along. If I figure something out, then I'll definitely get you down to Impact for a tryout. And you know, at that point, I was kind of jaded on, you know, anything good happening to me in this business other than, you know, the few indie feds that I worked for and, you know, the good things that was happening with that. And so I was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, I'll believe it when I see it. Appreciate it. Thanks. You know, I didn't say that to his face, obviously. You know, I showed a little more gratitude than that, but that was kind of my feeling, you know. And after you've been in the business for, was it at the time, 17, 18 years, you know, you kind of get to that point where you're like, you shrug a lot of stuff off. You don't believe it. You don't buy into it until you see it, because you hear all these different promises and stuff that just don't get kept. So he calls me one day. He says, "Hey, I got an idea. I want to run it by you. Hit me back." And so I call him back, and he doesn't answer. And I'm like, what in the hell? Who does this? Like how do you say I have an idea, and you know, then you don't answer the phone? Then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was in a meeting, yada yada yada." Okay, so then he calls me back and he says, "We want you down here for a tryout match in January. Still by the name of TNA Impact Wrestling, I believe is what it was." And so I was like, wow, okay, how does this work? How do I do it? He says, the only thing is you have to find your way down here. But once you get down here, you'll get paid and you'll be taken care of and yada, yada, yada. He says, you can stay with me. You don't have to worry about your hotel or anything like that. And I was like, cool. Like how cool is that? You got somebody on the inside actually pulling for you. It's different when, you know, you're seeking the opportunity and you're just kind of left, excuse my expression, ass out, you know, versus when somebody's like, we want you in here. You're the guy that I want and I handpicked pretty much to come in here and really kind of replace me. I mean, if you look at it, that's kind of what it's turned into. And so I bought my plane ticket and I went down there, and I remember him telling me before my trial match, he says, well, you're gonna have a match that's going to be an explosion match, and then you'll probably have a dark match just in front of the producers and the boys, just kind of, you know, see what you're all about or whatever, and see you know, if you're somebody that, you know, everybody wants. He says, I already know what you can do. I want you down here. But it's up to you now. And he says, I want you to go out there and show them everything. Do everything you know to do in a match that you can squeeze in that 8 minutes and do it. So I figured it'd be dark match first, and then the next day I would do the explosion match. But it was explosion match first because the next day they had the wedding to block out for. So then my second day match got cut. So I had the match. The match was with Caleb Conley. We went out there and it felt like we did, you know, a really good job or whatever. And I got some good feedback when I got to the back. Still at that point, just kind of not knowing, you know, what to do and how to think. I was just, you know, like, yeah, whatever, you know, and Abyss kept telling me, yeah, you did a great job, yada, yada, yada. Everybody liked it, this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, okay, when are they going to tell me whether I got the job? That's what I want to know. So the next day happens, and they let me know that I won't get the dark match because of the blocking of the wedding, which led into my introductory storyline, which actually happened to be the same time that Jeff Jarrett showed up. He was there as a consultant before he took over the vice president spot or whatever. So it's kind of, it seemed like I came in with Global Force, but I actually got there on my own merit, and Global Force just happened to be coming in at the same time that I was, or we were coming in together, however you want to term it. But, yeah, so they let me know that the second match wasn't happening, and I was like, all right, well, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to thank for the opportunity or whatever? And they pointed me in the right direction. At the time, the head guy was John DeBurke. And so I went and found him, and he was eating. And I said, I just wanted to tell you thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to do it yesterday, but I appreciate the opportunity and everything. He says, oh, yeah. No, I'm really glad you came and found me. He said, we won't be doing your dark match today, but we do want you back in March, and we'll have you in a full storyline of some sort. And so I was like, does that mean like you want me to sign a contract and stuff? Or he's like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, oh, okay. And so then I, kind of walked out of there and, tried to hold my composure, and I walked to where nobody else was at, and I called my mom and had my little moment or whatever. And then, it was that story of finally, all this hard work, all this struggling and scratching. And I mean, I'm still struggling and scratching, don't get me wrong, but I've made it somewhere, and kind of, I have a name for myself, and people know me all over the world now. This is just like a crazy situation that I get to be a part of, something that I wanted since I was a little bitty boy. Here I am, almost 39 years old, and I'm just now getting to experience it. But I'm so glad that the road that I took led me to where I am now, as opposed to trying to find some sort of shortcut to get there any other way.
Wow, that's really awesome. I could only imagine the feeling you got when, John said, "Of course, we want to give you a contract." That had to have been pretty cool after, like you said, being in the business for so long and working so hard to get a contract, and then you finally get it. That's got to be awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely incredible, and it was just an amazing moment that I didn't want anybody to see right then and there, because everybody was around because we were in catering at the point, and so
and there was food.
Yeah,
just the icing on the cake, right?
Walk away and have my moment, you know what I mean? And it was most important that I talked to my mom and then my dad, and then just like from there, yeah, tears were flowing, and it's just a feeling of relief, I guess. Elatement. Is elatement a word? I don't know. Anyway, if not, I made it up today. You can mark that in your books.
Nobody's going to argue with Kongo Kong. That's not happening. I got to say this. We read the comments online, and I'm a moderator on Asylum. As you guys are aware, and people, they take it for granted, these types of things. They don't get to see the human element that you guys go through, all that hard work, and then the elatement just to get where you've gotten. And for you to share that with us, for them to hear, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that is the kind of thing that people need to hear more of, these kind of success stories, because this is what this is all about. It's about elbow grease. This is about a guy that wouldn't give up on the dream and put the elbow grease in, and now you're there. It's a reality, Steven. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's why I tend to jump all over these, is so that people can hear the backstory. They see what is portrayed on television, and that's awesome. But a lot of times they just don't buy into it because they're jaded one way or another for whatever reason. But my ultimate goal, I guess, in this entire thing is to tell, especially some young kid, anything that you want to do, you can. You dream about it, put your mind to it, you can do it. You can conquer it. This world, like I tell my wrestling students, what I'm saying? I can't give you the world, but I can place the tools at your feet for you to go conquer it.
Very, very good analogy. I just want to go back a little bit. I want to ask you about the original Global Force Wrestling. What was the vibe backstage? Was there a lot of optimism that eventually you guys were going to get a TV deal and maybe, find a channel? Was that kind of the mood backstage during that?
Yeah, that was always the thought, always the hope. You felt like you're going out there, and we were being treated like celebrities, going to these shows, staying at this awesome hotel, working in this awesome venue, doing pre-tapes, and like the setup was amazing. Felt like it was going to turn into something big. And, we maintained that optimism for as long as we could, I believe, and every time I saw Jeff, I would make sure I'd ask him, hey, what's going on? Like, what's the latest news? And, every time he would give me, well, yeah, we're just waiting on this, and this is happening, and this is happening. And so it's like, cool, it's right around the corner. Just, how long do we have to wait on it? But, for what it turned out to be, I still have no complaints. It was still a great experience and great time in my life.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, eventually all that footage got shown on a one night only pay-per-view, which, I really enjoyed. And I thought it was a really fun. I've only watched 3 out of the 4. I got to finish the last one, but I just want to ask you, you worked with Henry Maxwell, I believe his name was. He was your manager during this. I thought he had a lot of charisma. I thought he was kind of funny. How was it working with him? Did he have a lot of experience in the business, or was this kind of like his first big gig?
I believe it was the first big one. I know he's wrestled some, and I think he's currently doing some MMA type stuff. But he was somebody that Sanjay saw on his show and thought was hilarious, and figured that he'd be best in the manager role. And since I needed a manager, it would make for good TV, and for the stuff that we did record, I thoroughly enjoyed working with him. He was the kind of guy that would just do and say the most ridiculous of things, and it was hard for me to stay in character at times, with him. Like, we did this thing, I believe on the last taping, where Chris Masters and I ended up in the ring posing, or maybe it was after the 3-way dance that I won or something like that. That's what it was. He gets in the ring and he runs around me, and then he kisses me on the cheek. And I'm looking like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what? And I just kind of shake it off, and it translated so well, because you see this disgruntled Kong, why the hell did this guy just kiss me? And I just kind of shake it off, and we celebrated, and it was just that kind of chemistry, and it worked. And I wish more people had gotten to see it, but all things work for the better.
Yeah, I thought he just had that cheesy heel heat. You don't really see that, but it kind of reminded me of WCW Chris Jericho a little bit. Just that cheesy comedy, but it's hilarious and it gets a reaction every time. So I was just kind of wondering about him.
Exactly. Yeah. I was hoping that we could have one more run, but like I said, I believe he's doing other things, and hey, long as he's happy, I'm happy. And I couldn't be more ecstatic about having Jimmy Jacobs now. Greg Valentine once said on a video, as he was just finishing a match for a Backyard Federation of all things, and he says everything in wrestling comes full circles. He says, I've sold out Madison Square Garden, and now I'm in the backyard. And just to think, starting that many years ago with Jimmy, and then we'd end up back together on TV, it's just the ultimate payoff. And I can't wait to see where it goes and how this turns out.
Yeah, definitely. I also want to say that I really enjoyed that triple threat number one contendership match with you, Brian Myers, and Kevin Kross. I thought that match was phenomenal. And like I said, I haven't seen the final part of it, but I mean that stood out to me as one of the best matches so far of the whole anthology. Did you have a lot of fun doing that match?
Absolutely, I did. I had never worked with either guy, and so I was just kind of all right, whatever you guys need me to do. And Brian Myers turned out to be a really cool guy. And I even read in an article where he thought the world of me. He didn't know how to read me at first, by looking at me, but then once he worked with me, he was a fan. And I take that as a great compliment, from somebody who's been around and done some things in this business. So yeah, him and Kevin Kross, a lot of fun to work with, and really easy. Like, it's good when you have guys in there that are willing to do things that make sense.
So let's take you to so you got the Impact contract now. There's promos hyping you up, basically having Sienna say there's a monster coming, and then you make your debut. And oh man, I never felt more sorry for Braxton Sutter in my life. But man, you laid the punishment on him. How did this all kind of turn out?
The original idea, I guess, was to put me with the Decay, and kind of make it where they found me as Steve Wilson and then transformed me into Kongo Kong, which I thought would have been awesome. But the new creative, which was Jarrett, just felt like Laura Van Ness needed some sort of revenge, and she was gonna lose it, go off the deep end, and we had to find somebody to pair her with, that would kind of get her revenge. And so that turned into me. And it was a great run. I loved it. I loved the comedy aspect. I love how we kind of fed off each other and gelled together, and I love how things were kind of left unexplained, and people just kind of formed their own conclusions about the whole group with Sienna and KM and Laura and myself. And the only thing about that is that I believe that the administration at that point kind of had a different vision for me and kind of what they saw as my character. Instead of allowing me to be me, they're like, well, okay, we want you to go out there and we want you to look at the lights like you've never seen lights before. And then look at these people, like, why are these people staring at me? And I'm like, it's the same people that were there yesterday. Why wouldn't I know why they're staring at me? Why would I not know what the hell a light is? Like, seriously, this is 2017 and you're making, this thing looks worse than what it is. And I get it. You have in mind, this character that I'm supposed to be portraying, but this is my character. When I signed on, I didn't sign on to be anybody different. If you needed me to be somebody different, you should have changed my name and made me somebody different. So finally I had to go to Jeff and be like, hey, do you want Kongo Kong or do you want this Kamala version of Kong that they're trying to get me to do? And he says, no, I want you to be a killer. I want you to be Kongo Kong, be aggressive, like I like. And I said, okay, well, you need to tell such and such to kind of lay off my case and let me be me, because, I don't feel comfortable going out there and just, being this stereotype that I've been trying to avoid all my career. And I feel like now that I'm on TV, that's exactly what these certain people are trying to take it back to. And so he did, and it kind of allowed me a little more freedom, to express my character, I guess, a little bit better. And then if you look at it, there's certain aspects, certain points where I look like a fool because I'm doing what they told me to do. And then there's certain aspects where you kind of get a better read of who Kongo Kong is supposed to be, I believe anyway, based on how I'm presenting myself during my match.
They seem to show you almost having a love interest in Laurel Van Ness for like a couple of weeks and then dropped it on its head. Was that about the same time?
Yeah. I wish we had gone further with that story, but they didn't see it at the time. They wanted to rush us out of that and into something else. And they felt like it ran its course. But I felt like, for me, the ultimate storyline would have been her dumping me and then me allowing my sister, Awesome Kong, to come back and wipe the mat with her. I mean, that would have been my ultimate payoff, but what do I know?
Oh, that would have been awesome.
That really would have been amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
They need to get you in creative, Steve. You need to get into creative. That would have been amazing.
And it would have made perfect sense too.
Oh, it would have been perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
I keep trying to drop ideas here and there, so that I can show them that I can come up with stuff, so that one day they can be like, hey, you ever thought about trying to join creative? And I can be like, yeah, does it pay more? That's it. Like, I know I'm not going to be wrestling always, but I'd love to get a backstage job of some sort to help, I guess.
I would love to see the interaction between you and Rosemary had you gone through the Decay route, because the four of you together would have just been golden.
I would have liked to have seen that storyline play out as well, but I mean, unfortunately it is what it is, but who knows what would happen or what could happen, between Rosemary and I down the road.
You would have been a great replacement for Crazy Steve too. I mean, two Titans teaming up together. I mean, we haven't seen something like that in a while, something like Natural Disasters. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, like I'm all for those type of storylines and kind of rehashing them, and making them work, like we haven't gotten that in so many years, like that it's time that you can go out and you can do that and recreate it and just kind of tweak it this way and tweak it that way, and nobody really know where you got the original idea from.
Yeah, that would have been something. Either way, I would have enjoyed, Awesome Kong coming back, or you with the Decay. I think they both would have worked out well. But I'm glad what we got now too. So
yeah.
Have you ever worked with Awesome Kong before?
We did get to tag one time for Heroes and Legends Wrestling here in Fort Wayne. I want to say 3 years ago. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Only thing I didn't like was like she had this glamour girl thing going on, and like it wasn't like the badass Awesome Kong look that I was hoping for. So I got her pretty much in like I don't know, like tights and like furry boots and things like that. Like it wasn't like the TV monster that I was used to, but it worked out. It was fun. It was a blast to hang out with her and whatnot, and finally get to meet her, I guess, because I'd watched her for years and I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of her work. We had that one experience together, and she ended up going to the Fed, I believe, and then she kind of got out of the business. So who knows if our paths will cross again, but if they do, hopefully she remembers me.
Yeah, because that would have been TV gold right there, and I'm always hoping for Awesome Kong to maybe get one last run in Impact, but I'll keep hoping, I guess. So
right.
Why don't you tell us about how cool it was to have the Impact tapings in Mumbai, India?
Man, it was like the best experience in the world until I got diarrhea. No, it was crazy. Like I'd been fortunate enough to go to China to wrestle earlier last year. And so the process wasn't completely foreign to me as far as like getting the visa and stuff like that. And really Impact handled most of the work on that as well, which, was awesome. And then to go there and like have the flights were all taken care of, and the hotel was all taken care of, and we stayed in like the best hotel I've ever stayed in anywhere. Excuse me. And just it was crazy. You were just treated like movie stars the entire time. And like once we left the hotel, however, you had to smell the streets of Mumbai and see all the dogs and things like that until we got to well, no, there's still dogs at Hollywood City or whatever, but at least there's air conditioning and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun to go there and do those tapings and be treated the way we were. Like, I felt like I was a superstar over there. One of the days we did this kind of called me out of the blue. It was the last day, as a matter of fact. So we're just kind of laying around, not doing anything. And Sanjay calls me and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, just watching TV, and I'm just kind of passing time until it's time to go to the airport. And he's like, "All right, well, get dressed. How long will it take you?" I'm like, "Huh? It's not just like a hair, put on some duds and be done. Like, it's going to take me about half an hour to 40 minutes. All right, well, hurry up." Okay. So I start getting dressed. And I go downstairs and we get in the car and we drive around the streets of Mumbai. And he says, "All right, I want you to get out and I want to film how people react to you." And I was like, "Okay. All right." So I'll get out and I started walking around and walk up on some people and they start running, they start scattering, and it's crazy. So then I walk up to some more people, they start scattering, and then I walked out into the middle of traffic and I lunged at a car. The car like hit the brake so hard that it made a screeching noise, and then like there was a guy on a moped and I growled at him and like he almost lost his balance, and I was like, "Whoa, this is awesome." And it went from people scattering and being scared of me to all of a sudden they were following me around and they were kind of crowding me. And like, I was like, "Look at this shit. Like, I'm larger than life over here." And so I'm getting ready to get into the car and I look around and most of the people that were out there at that time had circled this car and are cheering. And I'm just like, man, this is absolutely amazing. This has got to be like one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I wish that some of that had made TV, but obviously for character reasons, you didn't want to show all that stuff. But yeah, it was just stupid how awesome it was.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's got to be the best feeling in the world too.
Man, like I just turned from like this really nasty looking evil supervillain guy to all of a sudden I'm these guys' heroes. Like, I don't know if I reminded them of like one of their gods, the Hindu gods. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, but whatever it was, they started to take to it, and it was just like all these people gathered around watching me get back into this car, and it was the most amazing thing ever. Like, I just made their life.
Wow, that had to have been awesome. I wish they would at least shown it on like YouTube or something. That would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know. I still talk to the guy who filmed it, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up with that footage?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I should send you that, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, that would be great because if you guys aren't going to do anything with it, I can sure as hell do something with it."
Most definitely. So then it kind of led into your Slammiversary match, which was the 6-man tag. Did you have a lot of fun with that?
Slammiversary match. Oh, are you talking about the mixed tag with
yes.
Me, Cam, and was it Laura or Sienna? It was Laura.
Laura was in there. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I did. One of my favorite people to work with and hang out with for the longest time there was Shira. Shira was such an awesome guy, so nice and so humble, and like I feel like he got a bad rap a lot, but I guess that's most of us anyway. But yeah, like he was fun to work with. He was always willing to try whatever, and like. When I gave him the cannonball into the stairs and I flipped up on the stairs, I can't even tell you how many messages I got that night where people were like, "Hey, I saw that cannonball. How's your back?" And I'm like, "You should be asking him how he is. Why are you asking me how my back is? My back is fine, and he's fine too." But like, yeah, it was such a fun match and fun experience. Like, how many how many people get to say that they were on pay-per-view, even though it was on the pre-show? I was still on a pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like, it's another bucket list thing.
Right. Definitely. I mean, and then that would have been, to that point, that would have been your first national pay-per-view, because the GWF anthology hadn't been released at that point. So, that had to have been pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a great experience, and can't wait to get to some more pay-per-views.
I think there's going to be plenty more pay-per-views in your future for sure.
I think there's definitely going to be more this year too, from the sounds of it. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely stoked about the stuff that's coming up.
So the tapings before Ottawa, I guess there was a little bit of I guess you could say a changing of the guard, so to speak. If you can comment on that, cool. If you can't, that's fine. But how was that? How did that all kind of go down, so to speak? I mean, were you guys informed of the changes?
Okay. I want to say the last set of tapings that we did in Orlando before Ottawa, Jeff was still in charge. And it wasn't until after those tapings were over that things changed. And let's see, how do I say this? Like I kind of feel like we knew what everybody else knew. You know what I mean? Like we weren't. Some of us weren't really told like any backstory behind it, and for obvious reasons, because you don't want stuff like that just leaking out all everywhere, and that's fine. And I'm kind of one of those people where just let me show up to work, and then you can tell me what's going on then if you want. Otherwise, just let me know what I'm doing, and we go from there. Instead of always trying to keep up with whatever the latest gossip is or anything like that. But yeah, things that happened, and we knew it was going to be a different situation going forward. We just didn't know who and what at the time, and we just kind of went with the flow of things. Like, I guess at that point you kind of are used to things changing. You know what I mean? And so you just kind of wait it out and ride it out and do what you got to do, and let things happen as they do. Or let the chips fall where they may, if you will. And I hate that things happen the way that they happen. I wish there was some sort of way to have prevented it or to go about it a different way. But I mean, I honestly feel that for me, things ended up happening for the better. I still love Jeff Jarrett immensely, and I appreciate everything that he's done to me to help me thus far. I just think that it's turned into a better situation, I guess, for me, and I'll try to leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then going to the Ottawa tapings. Once you kind of figured out, I'm going to be working with Jimmy Jacobs. I mean, you had to have been pretty, excited for that.
Well, okay, I guess going back a little bit, I was supposed to have a match at the pay-per-view in Ottawa. Was it Bound for Glory? Yeah, it was Bound for Glory. But things happened again with the administration and my opponent at the time, and so things got changed. They got switched, and it kind of left me out in the cold. So I ended up without an opponent, and I ended up off TV for a really long time.
I want to say it was about 4 weeks. I want to say 4 or 5.
No, it was longer than that. Like I had a match with Shira in, I want to say, late September, and I didn't end up back on TV until December.
Oh, wow.
Wow, it's longer than I remember.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah. Whenever that last, there was the space between that last match with Shira and me coming out for that 6-man tag when Jimmy reintroduced me. That's how long I was off TV, because they were doing a lot of tapings in Mexico and things like that. So they were doing their content, otherwise, and then plus me not having a storyline just didn't really do me any favors. So anyway, I got to the taping, or no, I was watching the pay-per-view, and I just heard about Jimmy being released from WWE, and just happened to be, I figured he'd show back up in ROH or whatever, because that was his spot. And so I'm watching the pay-per-view and I see him come out, and I'm like, oh shoot, that's awesome. I'm gonna be able to work with him again, just not really thinking anything of it. And then I kind of had a later thought, like, wow, what if they paired me with Jimmy? That would be like tremendous. That would be great. But then I was like, well, they probably won't, but at least, I know I got somebody who's on my side in creative, or another person who's on my side in creative. So worst comes to worst, I won't get thrown by the wayside. And so then fast forward to, I get there, I'd say the third or fourth day in, excuse me, and I'm saying hello to everybody, and I see him, and he runs over to me and he hugs me, and he's like, yeah, they're putting us together. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. That is tremendous. I can't even begin to tell you. Like, I was just thinking, what if they did that the other day? Like, dude, like, this is gonna be so good. And he's like, bro, you don't even know. I was like, wow, okay, all right, don't tell me then. Let's just do it. Let's have fun at it. And so far, it's been excellent, amazing.
Wow, that is awesome. So, you were still in the States when Bound for Glory was actually going on. You didn't fly out until the storyline with Jimmy Jacobs started to kick in.
Yeah, they were trying to do something different as far as like how the tapings were going. Instead of having the entire crew there all at once and paying everybody to be there all that entire time, they were trying to make it more cost effective for them. And so we'd be in, some of us would be in 2-3 days and then fly out, and some would only be in for certain days or whatever towards the end. And like, if you're used to going down there with a crew, you kind of have your thing already established to where, this is who I'm rooming with, and this is, how we're going to handle this, and this. And, when that gets turned upside down, what do you do? Where do you go? It kind of, it throws a monkey wrench. And then not only that, but they bring you in for less days. So you kind of are stuck, in a twisty situation, I guess. And no fault of their own. They're doing, what they had to do in order to play recovery, I guess, in order to recover from previous decisions and things. So I only got to be there those last 3 days or whatever. And, and that's just the way it ended up happening, the way it crumbled, and then they came up with the spot for me to come back or whatever, and be reintroduced as the new monster. And it's just, it's I don't know, it's like it's an honor, it's a privilege, like to be given that title. Like, I'm excited. I'm happy to see, where this goes. Like I didn't feel that way before, but now, I know I have a direction and I have a purpose there, and, almost not saying that I'm not replaceable or anything like that, but I almost have a need.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you a question. What is a typical day like, when you're doing a taping for Impact Wrestling? When do you start? When do you end? Kind of what do you go through? Because it's obviously more than just a show with all the backstage segments.
We report around noon every day, and sorry, my phone's going off. People are texting me. My first hour is usually spent, catering or whatever, and then I'll go into makeup, hair and makeup, and get my face painted, and then if I have like a pre-tape or something to do before the show, then I'll have to get dressed for that. Then we have like the show run through, where we talk with our agents or whatever about what's going on the show. We have to do that. And then usually by the time we get done with that, we're about ready to rock and roll. And so you have to go through and make sure everything is still, in decent order as far as, your look. Then the show happens, and it usually ends up about a 10-hour a day for the 4 to 6 days that you're there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long time. I didn't think it'd be that long, but I guess.
Yeah. Well, you also have to look at the fact that we record 1.5 to 2 episodes every day.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So we have to get all that in, and then all the pre-tapes and all that stuff. And yeah, it's a nice little stretch.
It's got to be exhausting, particularly for the production crew that has to deal with everybody all week. I'm sure they sleep well when they get home.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like them, the writers, us. Like the writers, I was listening to how many times they meet a week after the show and rewrite the next day, just because either somebody's hurt or something different happened or some kind of way they have to change something. But they find ways to make it work, and there's a lot of love that goes into Impact, and it's not just what you think you might see on TV. No, there's a lot behind the scenes that go on into making that show.
Wow. So, not going to really go into spoilers, obviously, because I actually don't read spoilers as much as I can help it. But Genesis is this Thursday. You got a program with Joseph Park and Chandler Park, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. From all four of you guys are knocking it out of the park. But I guess after the Ottawa tapings, you guys were kind of, I don't know if you were left in the dark about what was going on, but maybe there was some uncertainty until, I'm sure you probably listened to it, the Talk is Jericho podcast with Scott D'Amore and Don Callis. Did you guys know, like, after the Ottawa tapings that, okay, these two are going to come in and be executive vice presidents?
I didn't even know who Don Callis was until I listened to that podcast. And like, it didn't occur to me that, that was a guy that did the Cyrus gimmick, and what was the other one he did? Anyway, once I figured out who it was, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Like, that's awesome. I mean, I'd worked with Scott for 4 or 5 years anyway. So, Scott being in control, or part of the control, was really good in my opinion, because I know how he operates and I know what type of businessman he is. Really smart, does things really well. And I believe that, he's definitely, a guy, if not, the guy who can help Impact get back to where it was at one point. So I'm totally glad about that. And then when I met Don Callis, he seems to know what he's doing and be really smart about the business. And so going forward, like, I'm excited about the prospect of what is happening, with Impact and where things are going. Like, people still talk their stuff and they say this and that and the other about Impact, whatever. But, here we are 15 years later and counting. So whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm always rooting for Impact. It's been my number one company since WCW folded. So, but I guess the last question, it's a two-parter. Now obviously you were probably working in a 4-sided ring the whole time, but do you prefer a 6-sided ring or do you prefer the 4-sided ring? What's your preference there?
I like the 6-sided ring because it made me feel like I was somewhere different when I went to Impact and wrestled in that ring, because I didn't get that anywhere else. The 4-sided ring, you get that everywhere. So I'm not saying I don't feel special when I go now and we're in the 4-sided ring, but I did like the 6-sided ring because it was different. Because it made you think while you were in there, what exactly you were doing, where you're going. You had to be precise with things. 4-sided ring, you can do that in your sleep. It's easy. The angles are easy, but 6-sided, you have this turnbuckle to choose from. This turnbuckle, this set of ropes. And excuse me, if you don't do things the right way, then a lot could go wrong. And I kind of enjoy that aspect because it was a challenge. It was definitely different than, the typical 4-sided thing. But I mean, now the 4-sided ring is there, and hey, whatever, we got to do what we got to do.
Now, there was a lot of content filmed this last set of tapings from Orlando. We got some live events coming up. A lot of stuff is headed towards the Global Wrestling Network. Other stuff is headed towards Twitch. Do you have any insight as to how they're planning on using those two platforms and distinguishing one from the other?
I do not. I really haven't asked much about either. Mostly because I kind of like to just stay out of the way and, not be, I guess, too nosy about, anything that's going on or whatever, that doesn't, I guess, directly affect me. As long as they have me working, as long as they have me doing things, I'm happy. But I'm pretty sure, they're just ways to try to encourage people to watch the product more, giving them more options and more ways, I guess, to get to the product. Because as you know now, if you have certain cable providers, you might not get pop television. And sometimes you have to order an extra package. Like my dad complains to me all the time. He's like, "You're the reason that I have to pay extra $50 on my cable bill so I can get pop television. And I don't even like wrestling, so you should be happy,
Tell him to get Hulu for $40 a month. Hulu Live has
it. Right. Right. That's what I've been telling him and my mom. But whenever their contracts expire, I'm sure they'll try some different avenues. But yeah, it's just I believe it's a way to get the product out there, to be seen, to try to develop popularity, to hopefully try to get to a bigger network, that pays more money, which, what I'm saying, would trickle down into us and just make everything better for everybody. That's the hope.
I just want to touch on the Twitch aspect. I watched the Barbed Wire Massacre on Twitch, and it had about 10,000 people just. And the cool thing about Twitch is they got a chat room, and you can see, everybody's reaction as the action's taking place. And I just think it's a really cool feature. They show Impact content 24/7 on there. It's different from the Global Wrestling Network because it's not on the Global Wrestling Network. You can choose it at your command, but on the Twitch, they just play, old TNA stuff and new stuff all day long. And it's really cool I know a lot of people who, like, seeing some people on the chat say they don't really watch Impact, but now that it's on Twitch, they watch it like all the time now. So I think it's definitely a positive for Impact Wrestling. And not only that, like, the house shows are going to be broadcasted on Twitch. So you guys have a house show coming up. I think there's one in early March, but then you have one at WrestleCon April 6th. You're going to be there, correct?
I don't know about April 6th yet. I will be in both Windsor and Toronto for those ones. So we'll see about April 6th. Hopefully, it'd be nice. But if not, then we'll see you next round on the house shows. But I think they're trying to keep them as regional as possible. You know what I'm saying? To try to cut down cost.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, who knows between now and then what could happen?
And it almost felt like, Impact was like the last company to get in on the WrestleMania buzz. So I think they did a real smart move this year and getting in on that, because it's such a, an awesome weekend where so many wrestling fans come down. So I think it was a really good move for them to get in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to consider yourself as competition to the WWE, because I mean, realistically, there is none. It's so far in between, I guess, them and the next level, that they had to create their own competition. So why not try to take advantage of that situation and how many people are going to be in that area during that time, during the biggest show of the year. They can sit and act like we don't exist, but I don't think we can sit and act like they don't exist. So, why not take advantage of that? I think that's a wise move on behalf of Ed Norholm and Scott and Don.
Impact Dude, you got any other questions for Steve?
Yeah, I got one final question for Steve, and it's real simple. Where do you want to take the Kongo Kong character? What goals do you have for Kongo Kong? And what can we look forward to seeing from Kongo Kong in 2018 and beyond?
Well, you can see a lot of destruction, and things of that nature. And I guess my personal goal is to be, at least for a little bit, the guy on top. That's something that I want to be able to say that I've done is be, world champion of a world renowned company. Of course, that's every guy's dream as well. But I feel like I'm at a point where it's something that can be realized. And, I'm just going to ride this thing out. Like I said, I'm 39 years old. I don't know how many good years I have left, but I'm going to do the best I can for as long as I can. And, we'll see where this thing goes. And I can only get in there and do the best I can. As far as, what happens, and the rest is left up to the writers, really. The writers and the fans. So if you like me, keep making noise about me. If you don't like me, keep making noise about me. That's the important thing, is as long as the fans are reacting and making noise, then I will have some sort of relevance. And I would just like to say, to all the fans, thank you. Like I said, regardless as to whether or not you like me, I had one guy say, he's not even strong, he's just fat. So? So what? I can make this fat fly. I mean, what? Is that not interesting enough for you? Do I have to be Braun Strowman in order to make an impact these days? And no, I don't. I can be something completely different and, still do what I do and do it at the level that I do it. And to the ones that like me, please and thank you. Keep supporting wrestling, keep supporting Impact Wrestling, support indie wrestling. We thrive off of our indie bookings just as much as we do Impact Wrestling, most of us anyway, believe it or not. Just keep supporting us, keep making noise about us. As long as you guys are making noise, then we can exist. And, as long as there's podcasts like this one, to where we have a platform and we can kind of talk and let you know what's going on. I wouldn't say behind the scenes, but going on with us behind the scenes, then, you have your opportunity to consider yourself, I guess, smart into the business, and you know some of the ins and outs. You don't know everything, but you know a little more than most people are privy to. So we appreciate you. We appreciate everything you do. Without you, we'd be a bunch of weirdos rolling around with each other in spandex.
Right on. Just want to I have a couple questions from posted on Facebook. I got a few, but I'm going to only take a couple here. I got one from Mario. He wants to know, who was the first person you couldn't wait to throw down with once you got into Impact?
Like, I wanted to get in there with Bobby Lashley. That's probably not going to happen, but again, who knows? See, Tyrus was another one. Abyss was another one. Because then I can demonstrate, what I can do and my level, I guess, of skill, and what type of show I can put on. Trying to think of anyone else. Most other people, most other big name people there, I'd already had some sort of experience with outside of there. So it's kind of hard to get excited about somebody you've already worked with.
Yeah. Next question is from Dwayne. How was it like working with White Mike?
White Mike.
He might be. Maybe his name's Dirty White Boy. White Mike.
You know what? I wrestled White Mike at an IWA Mid-South show. He was a lot of fun. He was definitely a character. Something different. We had a little comedy match, and I would do it again. I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was like a 5-star match or 6-star match for me or anything like that, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and they're for what was required, that's what we did, and we killed it, the best way we could.
And finally, the next question is from Ryan. What has been your favorite match so far in Impact Wrestling?
Probably the Monsters Ball match that hasn't aired yet. But you get to see it. You get to see it.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, that's all the questions I got for you, Steve. Just want to thank you for coming on and taking the time to chat with us. It's been awesome. We learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners are going to appreciate this as well.
And who'd have thought Kongo Kong was such a nice guy?
I appreciate you guys having me on. I really didn't expect to be on this long. I figured it'd be like 30 minutes and I'd be ready for dinner, but here we are an hour and a half later. But it was fun, and I like the fact that you guys asked me questions that I don't get to typically answer. And it kind of forced me to talk a little more about, history and what happened and things like that, versus, the typical, hey, when did you start? What did you do? Blah, blah, blah. Things you can find out on Wikipedia, so I appreciate you guys making the interview a little bit, better, a little bit different than some of the other ones that I've done.
Thanks, man. We appreciate that too.
Yeah. And hopefully, when you become world champion, we'll have to have you on again.
Oh, damn right. Let us know in advance. We'll fly down and we'll watch the match in person. That's what I want to do.
Well,
we won't spoil it.
Chances are I probably won't even know. So, yeah. If you see me heading that way, it'd probably be just a good idea to go ahead and get your tickets.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, all right, folks. That's the Heelcast this week. Impact Dude, thanks for doing the interview with me. Steve, always a pleasure. And we'll come up with the Impact recap this week, guys. I promise. We were all a little busy, so we didn't get to do that. But possibly this weekend we'll get one up for you guys. So once again, Steve, thanks for coming on, and we're out.